Okay, aloha mai kako and good morning. I hope you and your ohana are well. I'm Mike Gabbard, state senator since 2006, representing District 21, which includes Kapolei, Makakilo, Kalaeloa, Honokaihale, and portions of Fernandez Village and Eva. Mahalo for joining us today here online. Again, I'm sorry I had to cancel my in-person meeting at Kapolei High School as my back pain continues to hassle me. Actually, I'm making some progress. I'm happy to be sitting in a chair as I've been lying down for the last 36 hours or so. So for you first-time attendees, as the proud son of a career Air Force sergeant, I was trained to be on time. So we start our meetings promptly at 9 and finish promptly at 10. And if you don't get a chance to ask your question or state your concern, then send me an email and then we'll follow up with you. Also, the meeting is being recorded and it will be available on YouTube.
Sure.
My two full-time staffers, maybe Joe, you could turn off your microphone for now.
Sure.
My two full-time staffers are Meg Turner and Nanook Denise. They're with us this morning online. Meg, my office manager, has worked for me since 2014. That's 10 years. Oh my gosh, what an austerity. She's a townie, but I know she longs to move out here to the west side. I know she goes on shopping sprees out here after our community meetings. So thank you, Meg, for supporting our local economy. And then Nanook is my community liaison. She is also a townie. And do we have Melanie joining us this morning, Meg?
I don't see her on here.
Okay, so we have Melanie June. She's not here this morning, but she is an intern, a recent grad from UH Manoa who's helping us out. So it's an election year, as you well know, and while I won't be endorsing any candidates who are running, my personal policy, I'd like to acknowledge any of them who have shown up at our Listen Story meeting and are stepping up to possibly serve our community. So if you are a candidate running for office, please raise your hand, either in person or the little thing at the bottom of the screen. If you're running for office, anybody?
I am.
Okay. Okay, so why don't you, Sheila, right? Sheila Medeiros, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sheila Medeiros. I'm a resident of Kapolei Knolls. I am a retired Army officer. I served our country for 34 years, 14 in the National Guard here in Hawaii. I was commissioned in the OCS program here, and 20 years on active duty. My last duty station was at Special Operations Command up at Indo-PACOM. I retired in 2021. I am running for office for District 43, Makakilo Kapolei, because I have noticed an absence in representation, and also I have not issues, but I have concerns with just the engagement and community involvement. I really would like, oh, sorry.
I'll cut you off, Sheila. Thank you very much. So best wishes to you and your campaign. And you'll notice, folks, that I did not raise my hand. You are stuck with me until 2026 when I'm up for re-election. So, and by the way, I call my community meetings Listen Story meetings because the goal is for me to talk briefly about the community and do some legislative updates and then turn it over to you, the community, to hear about your concerns and your issues. And so many times we have guest speakers who shed light about various happenings around the state. And this has been very popular. We just started doing this last year, I think. And the exception to this format of the Listen Story thing is the month of May, today's meeting, when I do the legislative session wrap up, followed by a brief community update. So I'm going to be doing most of the talking today, and hopefully there'll be some time for Q&A at the end. And again, if not, please send me an email and then we'll do the follow-up. So okay, let's start off with the legislative session wrap up. As I'm sure you've seen in the news, we ended our session on May 3rd. And as you may recall, we begin our session every third Wednesday in January, and then we end usually the first week of May. So this was my 8th session as the chair of the Agriculture and Environment Committee in the Senate. As far as my impressions of the session, let's see, in a word, let's say fun, interesting, dramatic, I guess all of the above. We had some good bills and unfortunately many more bills that did not pass. But all I can say is win some, lose some. But ultimately it's not really a loss when you think about it. When bills or resolutions are introduced, it gets the conversation going in the community. And that's very important. That's a good thing. So I'm sure, as most of you know, sometimes it takes a few years to get bills passed into law. So since getting elected to the Senate in 2006, the most important thing that I've learned in the legislature is patience and determination. So this year overall, here's what happened. Let's see. As you can see, there were 2,678 bills that were introduced, which is about what it is usually each session, and 262 total bills were passed. So as of May 15th, just a couple of days ago, the governor has already signed 25 of those bills into law, which leaves 237 bills in limbo, sitting on his desk, gathering dust, patiently waiting for the governor's next move. So what happens next? Three options. Number one, if the gov signs the bill by July 10th, the bill becomes law and it's given an act number. The second option, if he doesn't sign or he vetoes the bill by July 10th, then the bill becomes law without his signature. And then the third option is if the governor intends to veto the bill, he has to inform the legislature by June 25th and deliver the veto by July 10th. And then if the bill is vetoed, it will not become law unless the ledge overrides his veto in a special session by a 2/3 vote in each chamber, in the Senate and in the House. And then the legislature must convene in a special session at or before noon on July 10th to override the governor's veto. So that's the process in a nutshell. So what I'll be doing today is talking about some of the bills that have passed and some that failed. I'll start off with the non-AEN, non-ag environment bills first. And keep in mind, with those 262 bills that passed, and most of them waiting on the governor's desk for his decision, obviously I'm not going to be able to talk about all over 200 bills in our short time this morning. So I've picked out a few that I feel may be of interest to you. And plus, I won't be able to answer all your questions about if we do have time for Q&A about some of the bills. So for more detail, I refer you to the legislature's website, and that's capital.hawaii.gov. That's capital with an O. It's a great website. You'll be able to punch in the bill number, whatever you're looking up, and then all the details of the bill's journey this session will pop up. Who introduced it, the committees it went through, what the vote was, the testimonies. Yeah, it's really, really good. So we'll start off with the non-agriculture and environment bills, non-AEN bills. First one is income tax cuts. We kind of internally, we give each of the bills a nickname. And this is HB House Bill 2404. And some people are calling this bill historic. It's unusual to see both Democrats and Republicans jumping up and down at the state capitol, high-fiving each other in the hallway. And the House Finance Chair, Rep. Kyle Yamashita, he said about this bill that it is the largest tax cut in state history. So the bill, it doubles the standard deduction that state taxpayers can claim when they prepare their 2024 taxes this next year. And then it adjusts the income tax brackets and standard deductions upward in a series of steps in later years. So here's an example that I found at Civil Beat. So the DOE tax, the Department of Taxation, it calculates for a family of four that's earning the average median income of $91,000. They would see their income tax liability decrease, listen to this now, by 69% by 2031. So that same family making that $91,000 a year, they normally they owe $5,323 in taxes, right, under the current tax law. But they would see that reduced to $1,639 in 2031. You can see why people are getting excited about this. So in all, the bill would effectively boost the income of that hypothetical family by 4% a year. And between 2024 and 2031, this household would pay $19,925 less in taxes. And so again, this is effective actually December 31st of this last year, so it'll include this tax year. Okay, the second bill is the General Excise Tax Bill, SB 1035, and this bill exempts hospitals, infirmaries, medical clinics, healthcare facilities, pharmacies, and medical and dental providers from the GET tax on goods or services that are reimbursed through Medicaid, Medicare, or TRICARE. So currently, under the law, only medical services at nonprofit hospitals and infirmaries or sanitariums are exempt from the GET. So this opens it up to everyone, the profit hospitals, et cetera, that I just mentioned. And then again, this will help reduce the cost of healthcare for our community's most vulnerable groups. It goes into effect January 1st, 2026. Number 3 is the Maui wildfire expenses, Senate Bill 3058, as well as Senate Bill 582. We appropriated about $1 billion to cover the various costs stemming from the Lahaina disaster. Includes $500 million for emergency housing for displaced residents, and then $124 million in rental assistance for those who are ineligible for aid from FEMA, from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And then the budget also includes $65 million for Victims Relief Fund, established for those who lost family members or suffered severe injury. Next is house density, and that's SB 3202. And so no later than December 31st of 2026, the counties will be required to allow at least 2 accessory dwelling units, that's 2 ADUs, on lots that are zoned for residential use in urban districts subject to certain restrictions. Next one is vehicle noise, SB 2350. This prohibits driving motor vehicles with noisy mufflers on public highways in high-density population areas. It also imposes separate fines for violations of motor scooter and motor vehicle muffler laws. The next is the fire marshal. That's SB 2085. And this establishes a state fire marshal to direct fire protection efforts statewide. It requires the State Fire Council to establish the terms of employment for the state fire marshal, and it appoints the state fire marshal to serve a term of 5 years. Now, it's interesting to note that these duties that are handled by the Council of Fire Chiefs, and that's from all of Hawaii's 4 main counties, that's been going on since 1979. So from previous to 1979, we had a state fire marshal, but it was abolished in that year. And so currently, until we pass this law, Hawaii is the only state in the country without a state fire marshal. Okay, so now we'll move to the non-ag, non-AEN bills that failed. First one up is SB 2922. And this bill requires HECO to create plans for preventing wildfires and report any fires that are linked to their operation. It ensures that the cost of these measures is fairly distributed among ratepayers and approved by the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission. Now, keep in mind, as you well know, you've seen in the media and the news, the investigations into the fire are still not complete. The lawsuits are being filed left and right. And so this bill was introduced by my colleague, Senator Jarrett Keohokalole. He's the chair of the Commerce and Consumer Protection Committee. And he made a decision to kill the bill because the cost of the bill was unknown. The proposal started off at $500 million, and then it climbed up to $2.5 billion. That's B with a B, with no cap on the amount to be borrowed. And so Yeah, there was that undetermined fee and the fees that could be charged to consumers, that's you and me, on our electric bill, monthly electric bill, would be for up to 30 years. And so there was no details on what the true cost to consumers would be. So I applaud my colleague, Senator Kay, as we call him, for doing this. And there could be a special session where we bring this up, and it could, yeah, so remains to be seen. Number 2 is recreational cannabis. SB 3335 makes adult recreational cannabis use legal and establishes a state control board. This passed the Senate, but it died in the House Finance Committee. The next one is cockfighting, HB 1980, establishing the separate offense and applicable penalties relating to the fighting of birds in the first and second degree. This one passed the House, but then it died on the Senate floor. The vote was 9 in favor and 16 opposed. I voted in favor. I was one of the 9 who voted in favor of felony penalties for cockfighting. So we'll see what happens next year. Next is pedestrian safety. That's SB 2630. Interesting bill. This one authorizes, and again, these are the ones that failed, right? This authorizes pedestrians to act contrary to the statewide traffic code when a pedestrian carefully and reasonably determines that there is no immediate danger of a collision with a moving vehicle. All right, so you're in downtown Honolulu, you're getting ready to cross the street, the little guy comes up, the white guy that telling you it's okay to walk, it goes away, the red comes up, and you look around, and what this bill would do is if you check and you're able to cross without getting a ticket. This passed the Senate, and it died in the House. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. And then moving on to the AEN bills, of the what I mentioned, the 2,678 bills that were introduced, 252 of them were referred to my AEN committee for hearings. Of those, 18 are on the governor's desk, and of those, well, excuse me, going back to the 252 that were introduced, 151 were ag bills, 101 were environmental bills. And then of those 18 that are on the governor's desk, 14 are ag bills and 4 are environmental bills. And so today I'll be talking about 5 AEN bills that passed and then 5 that failed. First up is HB 2619. I get chicken skin just talking about this bill because, it's the biggest AEN bill literally to pass, this biosecurity bill. And it takes effect July 1st this year. So I did introduce the companion bill, which is, companion bills are exactly like the bill in the other chamber. And that way, sometimes both bills are introduced in case one dies early, then the other one is still alive. So that's the strategy there. You've probably heard a lot of positive buzz on this one on the evening news. You may have seen on the evening news, in fact, that remember the little fire ants, little LFAs that they showed up at the Punahou Carnival this year at the plants that they're selling. So now we're not only battling LFAs, but also CRBs, coconut rhinoceros beetles, coqui frogs, coffee berry borers, rose ring parakeets, feral cats, and feral chickens, two-line spittlebugs, the list goes on. And important note here, though they have not arrived yet, brown tree snakes, they're not here yet, but yikes. If these nasty critters ever invade our island paradise, we are toast. I mean, in Guam, they cause frequent power outages, loss of native species, and loss of pets and birds. And most likely they got into Guam in the 1940s, is what I'm told, in imported cargo. So the brown tree snake has no natural predators in Guam, so it has multiplied rapidly and has caused the extinction of most of Guam's native forest birds and lizards. So reality is we're in a state of crisis as far as biosecurity. Invasive species, they threaten the livelihoods and well-being of our farmers, our ranchers, and actually all of us. So if we don't prioritize biosecurity now, we could actually see the collapse of our natural and food ecosystems across the state. And we've been aware of the problems for years. We've talked about the solutions for years. But this bill, if it passes into law, it really gets the ball rolling big time. And I believe it is truly a historic measure in response to our increased awareness and concern about invasive species. And as far as accountability, well, guess what? No more guesswork. Which government agency is in charge? Is it Department of Ag? Is it Department of Land and Natural Resources, DLNR? Is it Department of Health? Who's in charge here? Who do I call and raise hell about it? The bill allocates close to $20 million to the Department of Agriculture to lead and coordinate the state's invasive pest control and its biosecurity efforts. And listen, here's some details. 44 new positions, includes 22 in the plant quarantine branch of inspectors to oversee the plant materials, which is critical to mitigate the transportation of these invasive pests. And here's the part that I really love about this bill. It requires the Department of Ag to post on their website real-time updates on pest infestations. That would be the date, the location, the actions performed, and the names of the staff and organizations involved, so that the public knows exactly who to contact at the Department of Ag if the problem is not being addressed, right? You talk about, hello, this is a community, a dream for the community, that you know where to go. You're not getting the runaround. You're calling this office, call your representative, call your senator. Who do we call? So this nails it. Department of Ag, that's who you call. And they'll have all this information for you. You know, you may be thinking, you see on the news about little fire ants or coconut rhinoceros. Well, how are they out here in Kapolei or Makakilo? You know, or what's the problem out here? This is going to make sure that everybody's up to date on all the details. So in addition, the biosecurity bill, it provides $200,000 to the counties as a grant and aid, which means that the counties have to match the funding, whatever it is. It's $50,000 per county, I'm told, for the implementation of feral chicken control programs. So out here in Kalailoa, we had quite a history with where we live with feral chickens. At one time, 13 of them showed up. We had actually started feeding them, and before we knew, before they started taking over. And anyway, so this will be a real boon for everyone. So we are finally putting our money where our mouth is in terms of invasive species. So that's why you may have seen the article in the paper that I've called this bill a masterpiece. Indeed, it's been a long time coming. And then the next one is the value-added production, HB 2144. Here's another one you may have seen in the news, and I think its passage is a pretty big deal for local entrepreneurs and farmers. It's really a landmark move that it supports local industries by requiring the Department of Health to change the definition of quote unquote homemade food products in its administrative rules on food safety and adopt certain rules regarding the sale and delivery of homemade food products. Okay, so it broadens the types of shelf-stable food that can be sold, you know, whether it's at farmers markets or in the supermarket, wherever, online, and where producers can sell them while maintaining high standards of food safety. Of course, the Department of Health is concerned you're making these jellies in your home kitchen, and you've got cockroaches getting in. There's not the strict regulation of what that environment is like. So this bill, it'll provide more opportunities for fruit growers to sell raw produce for use in value-added products such as jams, jellies, syrups, and sauces. The mango grower, the Hawaii tropical fruit growers, they are crazy jumping up and down in joy for this bill because it's going to help them. Imagine, you know, you're harvesting all your mangoes. You can't sell them out the market. They start going off, and what do you throw them away? No, you make mango jam. Now wait a minute, I got to rent a commercial chicken. It's $100 an hour. You know, so this, yeah, it's really going to help out our farmers. Okay, and then next one is bona fide farmers, SB 2960, and this has been a problem for decades. You know, the people using ag land for non-farming activity, and it's increased over the past few decades. The home on ag lands are often marketed as quote unquote gentleman estates. That's what they're referred to. And that's where wealthy folks, they can come in, they purchase large parcels of land to live on, and they pursue farming as a hobby. You know, plant a coconut tree out there, maybe a tomato plant or so. Oh, I'm a farmer, you know, and they get to buy the land cheaper, pay less in taxes, etc. So the purpose of this bill is to, one, clarify that ag lots can be used for farming by requiring that the purchaser and the lessee of the farm lots submit proof of using the lots to produce food or conduct other ag activities. And then it also, secondly, it authorizes certain ag cooperative associations to apply for farm lots. So as I said, this has been on, well, it's been on my radar personally for a while now. So I'm glad to see it's on its way, or that it's on the governor's desk. And it just makes sense. The next one, cesspool prioritization, HB House Bill 2743. Yes, this is a crappy bill, if you get my drift. As we know, there are over 80,000 cesspools in the state that are leaching. Basically, it's just a hole in the ground where your waste go, right? That are leaching into and polluting our waters. Now, a few years ago, we passed a law saying we're going to close these down by 2050. Here we are in 2024. So this bill at least is a step in the right direction. It requires the UH Water Resources Research Center and the UH Sea Grant College talk story with the relevant stakeholders and develop an overlay with a cesspool prioritization tool identifying specific priority areas in which a county sewer system or other centralized treatment systems, septic tanks, those are the two choices, right? Either hooking up to a sewer system or a septic tank, can reasonably be expanded or constructed. So the reason why it's so important is that of those 80,000 plus, so you have the priorities. Okay, here's priority one. We need to close these down first. These are doing the most damage to our environment. And then we move over to the next priority two, priority three. So, yeah. Let's see. Seabed mining. SB 2575. So this prohibits the mining and extraction and removal of minerals from the seabed in all state marine waters with certain exemptions. And all I can say about this one, it's about time. Considering the fragility of our coral reefs, to give you an idea, the Oregon legislature passed their similar legislation prohibiting seabed mining in 1991. Washington in 2021, California in 2022. So, and think about it, those three states are coastal, right? We're surrounded by the ocean. So that's why this bill is so important. Okay, and then we'll move on to the AEN bills that have failed. First up is the school meals bill we call HB 2083. Excuse me. So in 2021, we passed, here's the backstory, Act 175. Okay, in 2021, we passed the law, it becomes Act 175. It says that by 2030, 30% of the food served in public schools will be locally sourced products. Got that? Think about a farmer's dream, right? And listen to this. 30%, right, by 2030. We are currently at about 6%. Okay, so it's 2024, and we've got less than 6 years to reach that 30% goal. Now, think about this. There are 295 public schools in Hawaii. You get where I'm going here? That makes them, those public schools, the largest chain restaurant in the state, right? 5 days a week, they're churning out those lunches. And some of them are serving breakfasts as well. So the point is, how do you reach that 30% goal? So this bill, it requires the Department of Education, the DOE, to establish a recognition program to incentivize schools to submit to the DOE a plan for the school to reach the local farm to school meal goal of 30% of food served in the school by 2030. And it requires the DOE to establish guidelines for the recognition program, including what incentives will be offered and what awards will be granted to the schools who commit to do this. And one of the neat things about this bill that was added as an amendment was it provides that the DOE may accept donations and contributions made by private individuals or organizations by the recognition program. Okay, so as a former teacher, this bill not passing was a heartbreaker for me and many others for so many reasons. And especially, you know, for example, the Mililani High School students got involved in this. So many people got involved in hoping that this bill would pass, actively working on this to get this bill passed. And just think about it, what the fact that it didn't pass, what a bummer it is for our farmers. So I think it's an exciting bill because it helps our students' health. It helps the farming community, right? And just the overall well-being of Hawaii residents. And as far as incentivizing schools, right? So we're trying to think about this, right? I hope the DOE, they consider, you know, the competitive nature of high school sports when they're looking at this bill. You know, you could have schools such as Mililani High School say, hey, well, let's see, we're not at 6%, we're at 7.5%. And of course, our Kapolei High School Hurricanes, they come back with, hey, Rod, what's wrong with you? We're at 12%. What's wrong with you guys? Get on it. So, but have that competitive nature. And then you have, you know, who knows, we'd be able to accept donations, contributions, you know, we could reach out to Larry Ellison, who owns Lanai Island, Mark Zuckerberg, some of our part-time Hawaii residents with gobs of extra money. They might be excited to help our local high schools. So again, another part of the bill, it authorizes the DOE to establish a plant-based meal pilot program at Mililani High School to provide a plant-based meal as an option under the school meals program. So as I've said many times at these meetings, we import 85 to 90% of our food at a cost of about $3 billion every year. Think about how great the passage of this bill would be into law for our farmers, where they could work with the schools in their district and elsewhere, but to supply them from the fruits and veggies on a regular basis. You could count on it, right? So on this one, I worked very closely with House Rep LaChica and other stakeholders, as I mentioned, such as the students at Mililani High School, Debbie Milliken, who's the Director of Sustainability at Punahou, the Youth Climate Forum, Dennis Chase, who's the Program Manager at the Hawaii Farm to School, HUI, with the Hawaii Public Health Institute, to get this bill to the finish line. Unfortunately, we didn't get clearance from the two money committees, Ways and Means in the Senate and Finance in the House, so it died in conference. And this bill is at the top of my list for introducing and getting it passed into law in the 2025 session. So again, it's a kako thing. Yes, patience and determination. I hope to get it done this next session. Then we have the Ag Crime Pilot Project, SB 2363. Yeah, this was introduced by myself, Senators Chang, Favela, McKelvey, Richards, Sima Bakuro, and Wakai. And it focuses on addressing ag crimes in Hawaii. During my 8 years as the AEN chair, I've made many site visits to farms statewide and talked story with farmers and their families. I've shared some of those stories with you at our community meetings. Some of these families who have had their fields of fruit vandalized or stolen, right? Just think about it now. And what this does is, this bill does, it examines the effectiveness of prosecuting ag crimes, including ag theft and ag vandalism. And the focus is on the city and county of Honolulu, on Oahu, and also the county of Kauai. So the status, it passed out of my AEN committee, and then it did not get scheduled in the Judiciary and WAM Committee. And due to the controversy and trauma that happened with the rancher that was killed out at Makaha, who was murdered, when we saw this bill that was going to die, then we introduced a reso, which was adopted in the Senate, and it's SR 138. And it basically has the contents of the bill that did not make it. It establishes a 2-year ag theft and vandalism pilot program to examine and assess the effectiveness of prosecuting ag crime cases and provides resources to suppress incidences and losses to farmers, ranchers, aquaculturists, and floriculturists in the state. Try again next year for it to actually get the bill. The third bill is the Ag Emergency Loan, SB 2431, which also failed. I introduced this bill. It focuses on supporting ag resilience and recovery. It establishes a permanent and dedicated ag emergency loan program. And this is needed because right now the ag enterprises who need emergency funding, right? Let's say that there's a disaster or whatever, they all come out of this one pot of money, the Agricultural Loan Revolving Fund. And so when there's disasters, for example, what happened in Lahaina, the farmers are reaching out and the funding for these emergency loans are coming out of this one pot. And therefore, if you're a farmer getting started and you want to get a loan, there's not much left in the pot for you to help you out. So this establishes a separate pot for Class D loans, or which are designed to aid farmers who have emergencies. This passed out of my committee, but it didn't get scheduled in the WAM committee, so it therefore died. Okay. And then green fee. Yeah. HB 2406. This one gets my blood boiling, quite frankly. It's frustrating why we cannot get a green fee bill passed. And I'm not talking about a golf course. I'm talking about the fee that would be charged to tourists to have them help pay for our natural infrastructure, our natural resources, our beaches, our ocean, our hiking trails, our et cetera, right? So I think in 2019, pre-pandemic, we had 10 million visitors, right? And I've talked to some of these folks. They said, hell yeah, I want to help. I want to contribute. I don't want to just come here and just look at the mountains and the ocean. What can I do to help? And as many of you know, that's one of the changes that's happened with our tourism industry. It's switching over now to involve our tourists in more culturally based activities, where they can actually get involved in taking weeds out of a taro patch or whatever. But it's kind of cool what's happening. So, but anyway, this bill would establish the Climate, Health, and Environmental Action Special Fund to prevent climate crises and more effectively respond to climate crises when they occur. So this particular green fee bill was an additional $25 that would be added on to the transient accommodations tax that every tourist pays. Okay, so, and again, countless numbers of bills have been introduced, 2024, 2023, 2022, we had one, also in 2021. So again, patience, determination, we'll try again next year. And then finally on the PFAS bill, HB 1896, PFAS, I won't even try to pronounce the actual scientific term. They're a group of manufactured chemicals that have been used in industry and consumer products since the 1940s, and they're known as forever chemicals. And because they build up in human bodies and they do not break down naturally in the environment. So this particular bill, HB 1644, was to protect the environment and human health from the detrimental and toxic effects of these PFAS products. And the purpose and intent was, beginning January 1st, 2027, was to prohibit the manufacture and sale of, any food packaging, food serviceware, cosmetics, personal care products that contain intentionally added PFAS substances. And so this bill passed the House. the Senate, my committee, and also Consumer Protection, we passed with amendments. Excuse me, went back to the House. The House decided to recommit the bill because they didn't like some of the amendments. So we'll take a look at this one again next year. I'm concerned about these PFAS because you hear about it every once in a while on the news. It's showing up in the water, and we just don't know enough about it. So we really need to be aware of this inside on the cautionary side. Okay, we are at community updates. All right, so let's see. Let me share with you some of the budget highlights that for Senate District 21. We were able to get $1.4 million for the Department of Defense to add utilities at Kalailoa. As a resident of Kalailoa since 2004, this is, very happy to see this. And also UH will receive $1.6 million to restore funds from COVID at UH West Oahu, and also $180,000 for early childhood education support at UH West Oahu. Next slide is the Daniel Keakaka Department of Veteran Affairs VA Clinic. On April 5th, I attended the opening of our VA clinic. Daniel Keakaka, it's a long name there. Just down the street from where we live in Kalailoa. It's also just on the other side of just Mackay of Costco, in case you're not sure where it is, right there on Roosevelt Boulevard. And it is a fitting honor for a Vets Affairs Clinic to be on the west side, to be welcoming our veterans, as this clinic was a lifelong dream of our Senator Dan Akaka. And so this is $120 million facility, 89,000 square feet. And this will this clinic will provide specialized health care for our 87,000 veterans who live on Oahu. And that includes primary care, mental health, audiology, what else? Physical and occupational therapy, a dental and prosthetic services lab, also diagnostic services, specialty care, x-rays, and a pharmacy. And the Akaka VA Clinic will make it easier, and you vets I know are already nodding your head out there, for vets on the west side to access services without having to drive to Tripler Army Medical Center. And I've already been hearing this from our vets who across the board, they dreaded going to Tripler, not only for the dealing with the traffic on H1, but also the extremely long wait times at the Tripler Clinic. So this is really a godsend. This is very happy to have this one opened. Next is the Daniel Keakaka State Veterans Home. And that's located on Kealanani Avenue, right across from Walmart. It is now 99% complete and is still under budget. It has 120 large private rooms with private bathrooms. There's skilled nursing, geriatric mental health, dementia and Alzheimer's care, rehab therapies, hospice, and adult daycare. And they've had numerous internal construction delays. That's what they've been dealing with. And so they're hoping to have their first patient intake the summer of 2024, this summer. And they hope they have the full facility in operation. Looks like it's being pushed back to fall of 2024. So, and then the next we have slide 15. That's the AES Hawaii West Oahu Solar and Storage grand opening. This AESY, they provide low-cost energy to Hawaii since 1991. This new project benefits Oahu in many ways, such as creating approximately 118 West Oahu jobs, generates a total economic output of $20.2 million toward Hawaii's economy, and is projected to result in avoided fuel consumption. That's avoided barrels of oil that we do not have to, 750,270 barrels that we're not going to be buying because of this solar project over its 25-year span. And so on April 9th, they had their blessing. You can see the mayor there and other individuals there. Yeah. Next, Ka'ulu by Gentry. I've talked about this before. The local families can look forward to a new beginning at Ka'ulu by Gentry. They've got their permits for the first 6 multifamily buildings this month, and they're now working on getting their certificates of occupancy. And they're hoping that their first buyers will be able to start moving in early next month. And then road updates. So on the 550 acres in Kailua that Hunt Companies own, they've been working with the DOE, the local DOE, as well as the federal DOE regarding construction along Kopahe'e Avenue to installation of improvements next to Barbers Point Elementary School. You see it right there in red. So they're putting in a new sidewalk with street lighting. It'll be installed on the leeward side of the fence along Kopahe'e. And the sidewalk will provide the school with a safer walking environment. And then the rest of the work on Kopahe'e could potentially begin somewhere between July and August, and then be completed by January to February of 2025. Next, Makakilo Drive Extension. I know I can hear some of you squirming in your seat out there, especially those of you who live in Makakilo. I just want to tell you that this is one of my top priorities this coming year for me, because it's such an important project, is the completion of Makakilo Drive, where it dead ends and connecting it to the H1 East Freeway. So I've been working with the chair of the Neighborhood Board Transportation Committee, Mick Ferreira, and also in the process of approaching our congressional delegation to get some help at the federal level. And I'm still gathering information. I was able to, we don't have enough time to go into details on the bills and the rezos that were introduced that did not get passed regarding Makakilo Drive extension. But we tried, I tried my best on this this project this year. But as I said, I'm still gathering information. I'll go into more detail in our June Listen Story meeting. And then Fort Barrett Road improvements. The last I heard, paving for this work, this is the vicinity of Kama'aha Avenue to the vicinity of Farrington Highway. You've noticed that work that's been going on the right hand, on both sides actually, to use a path that will be completed. They said it was going to be done by May 11th. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but it looks like it's done. But so there'll be no more no more lane closures are anticipated. Next one is Farrington Highway widening. It's a terrible slide, but that's the best we could get. The project includes clearing, grading, and it goes from Kapolei Golf Course to Fort Weaver Road. Also, concrete curbs, gutters, sidewalks. They're going to have to install gas lines, water lines, sewer lines, street lighting, traffic signals. Yeah, the whole works. And so they're projected to start work on this August 15th of this year. So just a few more months. Next, Route H1 addition and modification of freeway access. Okay, so this is a construction you can see in the picture there. It gives you a good idea of the new highway interchange that's bound by Farrington Highway, H1 Freeway, and the Harbor Access Road between Kapolei West and Kapolei Commons properties, and the removal of the off-ramp exit 1A to Kailua Boulevard. So the project construction has started on September of last year, and they are anticipating finishing completion August of 2025. So it'll be about a year and a couple months, yeah. Next is Fort Barrett Road crossing and lighting improvements. This one is, they're installing a new crossing signal, including providing new gates, a traffic signal interconnect between Roosevelt Avenue traffic signal controller and the railroad crossing signal. And the construction on this, also there's installation of highway and shared use path lighting. They started construction in March of this year, and they're looking at 12 months to get the job done. And the traffic signal work there will be installed last because it needs to get the city's approval. Next slide, Ho'opili. So it's been 7 years since Ho'opili moved their first family in, July 2017. And there's been 10 development phases completed under construction to date. And so far, about 2,800 plus families call Ho'opili their home. Yeah, many new businesses have opened up: Sage Creamery, Little Manila Market, State Farm, Domino's Pizza. They've got a pediatric dentist there, Hype Yoga, K Beauty, and Pono Revival. So it's really, I haven't been there in the last month or so, but it's really blossoming into a beautiful community there. And then Haku Kapolei. Okay, the HHFDC has selected Ike Nakea Development LLC and the Michaels Organization to master plan and develop up to 900 affordable rental and for sale homes at one of the largest remaining undeveloped properties in the villages of Kapolei. And if you're wondering where this is right next to the State Veterans Hospital, that open space there across from Kapolei Walmart. I'm already getting some negative feedback from community members who are very concerned about traffic issues, and rightfully so, about this proposed project. And I'll have more details to discuss in our June meeting. And so at this project, all rental units are aimed at households who are earning 30 to 60% of their Oahu area median income, as set by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Then, in closing, wow. I'd just like to contact my office if you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions. I'll open it up. We've got a few minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. So if there's any questions, please raise your hand or just go ahead, dive in. Okay, Joe, what's up?
A couple of things. Thank you for giving equal time to successes and failures.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
With regard to school lunch bill failure, that doesn't prevent people from voluntarily creating programs, does it?
No, that's fine.
And it seems like there's a big push on for a lot of those things.
Yes,
So at
yes.
least they can go forward.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because the Ulu factory, not factory, but the on the Big Island, they have gotten involved with lunches, making sure that all that ulu that's being harvested, right, does not go to waste. And so they've been working with the DOE in terms of school lunches. And also, they're serving poi. The taro farmers are also getting
Exactly.
involved. So so that's the kind of thing it takes, right, Joe? Where the more awareness people have in the community, right, then the more they can jump. Hey, what about this? What about this? So yeah.
The other thing was with regard to invasive species, fire ants produce no visible deterioration of the environment, but coconut rhinoceros beetle really does.
Yes.
I thought I heard something about using drones to spray insecticide up in those areas of the palm trees.
Yes. That has not been finalized.
If our palm trees die, that's really going to look bad. I mean, tourists don't like to see, stems without any fronds on them.
Absolutely. Come to paradise. That's, you got that picture in your mind, right? And then all of a sudden you're looking.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. And it's interesting because at some of the islands where the CRBs have proliferated, they've sent me pictures I've seen on the evening news of some of these, and it's just really sad.
Yeah.
And that's why government, we have to do our job to make sure we do our best, right, and taking care of this. And obviously, it would have been better had we somehow, when they first showed up here, to be more preventive and prevent them from spreading to other islands. But then again, that goes into the whole issue that I talked about in 2619 of getting the money, getting that $20 million, so we can hire the personnel, we can hire the inspectors, we can hire whatever, put together whatever we need to keep
Buy
these
the drones.
Exactly. Buy the drone. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Anyone else? Okay, Sheila.
Hi, Senator Gabbard. Thank you so much for being super transparent and your fight for agriculture. I am a big food sustainability advocate, believing in garden to table. I have a garden myself in the backyard, and I
Good.
fully support. I attended Rep Russo's meeting on sustainability, food sustainability, and she had just great ideas on working with the schools with
Yeah.
the garden farm to table. So I
Yeah.
truly support that. Thank you so much for that. I would like to see a community garden in the space that they want to have haku kapole. So instead
Yeah,
of homes,
sure.
I think that would be fantastic. But thank you so much for advocating for agriculture.
Absolutely, Sheila. And that's a very good point. And again, it's an example of if that project goes forward, we don't know if it's going to, it's got to go through the planning, permitting, all that stuff, right? And again, as I said, we'll talk about it next month. That input about having a community garden there, each of these projects that are being built, build that into the plans, right? So that it becomes a part of that community. It's so important, so important. Yeah. Okay, so folks, it's 10 o'clock. I have to take off. Thank you very much. I hope you didn't get totally bored during my long presentation, but I do feel we covered the legislative session pretty thoroughly. And again, if you're use that website, if any questions on the bills, go to that website. You can just Google a bill, whatever the bill number, if you forgot the bill number, and amazing how Google can just tell you the bill number, where it is, and then you can just get all the details by going to that website. So yeah, we have not set our we're still waiting to get the approval from Kapolei High School for our June meeting. But as soon as we get that, I'll send out an email to let you know when the next June meeting. But thank you very much, everyone, for participating, and aloha. We'll see you.
Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.
Mahalo.